Hey, everybody, this is Brandon Adams with The Blueprint. The Blueprint is a podcast that is sponsored by The Smoking Gun, which is my marketing company. You can catch us at nosmokenofire.com. What we're here to do with The Blueprint is just give you, a basic map as to take something from nothing and turn it into something. We're bringing in other guests that have done this with their life and their brands. Today is going to be Tex Moton. He has YUMS brand and a couple other ones that I'll let him tell you about today. But Tex has done more than just branding; is also a local artist as well. So stay tuned. Let's do that today, and hope you like it. So it's Brandon here at the Blueprint. With Smoking Gun. I want to make sure that we're bringing in different type of people who have brought something to the game when it comes to marketing their companies or bringing their company from nothing to something. So the people that I'm going to be bringing in here are going to sit in this chair over here, and they're going to tell us what they did, what the spotlights were, how they really tried to change the game when it came to getting themselves out in front of everybody. It's very difficult. There's a lot of people out there that are trying to do this, and they just don't know what to do. So really kind of breaking it down with these guests and hearing their story. First one is going to be Tex. Tex is a buddy of mine. Tex has been a great friend of mine for a long time.
For sure. 100%.
Tex has got me introduced into the can business for some time. So rattle can, spray paint, fellow artist of mine.
For sure.
Tex, you want to tell something about yourself?
Man, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited for the liftoff, since we're, on the launching pad of y'all's new venture. So I appreciate y'all inviting me out. But yeah, like I said, been a lover of art all my life. So, just taking that skill set, and that vision and applying it to different products is just an amazing blessing to be able to do day in, day out.
So focused on art in general. So are you more, because I know that you're a muralist.
Yeah.
We both have done several things together.
For sure.
But you get in clothing as well and shoes. So when you said just, being an artist in general, is it like you're pushing art onto whatever screen that you can find?
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. But, just the fact of, looking at any product, anything that you want to make from an artistic vantage point is just a really cool thing. It kind of lets you see something, with that background, especially in an urban setting or street culture. It kind of gives you a different outlook on how to, get your product and present it in a way that everybody kind of gravitate towards.
Mm-hmm. So you're trying to keep that. So when it comes to clothing in general, is it a different approach? Because, murals are really kind of word of mouth. Once you start putting your style out there and people see that, clothing, you got to start that from scratch. Because on a mural, you put it up in the city and people see it whether they want to or not. It's just going to live there until it gets covered up.
For sure. Yeah, clothing is definitely, it's, for me, it's like a phased approach anyway. So, from conceptualization and getting that all dialed in the way I see it in my mind, once I get past that hurdle, I feel, pretty excited about that. Then that moves me into getting, the product actually getting it in hands and, working towards figuring out an end game on how you get that collection, that batch out to the market in some form of fashion.
Mm-hmm.
But, back when we started, the sneaker brand, it was still when trade shows were, more relevant than they are now. So you had an outlet that you knew that your market was going to be there anyway. So it was a lot easier to get exposure. But, it's a little more tricky now since, most of those type of events have moved into like an online experience. So getting that part out there, getting people to connect with it, get eyeballs on it with people that fit where you're trying to take it, that's a little bit more tricky these days. But
So speaking of your shoe brand, YUMS, for those of you guys that don't know out there, YUMS is a shoe brand. So talk to me a little bit about the name, what it means, and then how that thing came into existence. Did you say, man, I just want to get shoes, and you started finding other people's shoes and painting on them, or did you design something from scratch? Like, how'd you get into that, and where'd that come from?
Yeah, well, YUMS is an acronym for You Understand My Style, and it's kind of like our opening the conversation with our community. But the way we got to that point is, interesting story. I've always, like, I got into graffiti, which is like, term street art essentially now, but, back then it wasn't as accepted. But I got into that in high school. I always kept a sketchbook around just to put ideas in. So, randomly one day I just got some inspiration and I drew a sneaker, the way I kind of saw it, but I, had the idea of giving this sneaker like a personality. You know what I mean? So that was just an idea. I jotted down. I kept it moving. Then I ended up meeting up with my business partner now, JP, who back then found me through a couple of other projects to do some T-shirt companies and stuff with kind of like a graffiti flair, which we did, way back in the gap at this point. But he met up because he was a soccer coach. So he had this girls' organization that he was working with called Polaris. And he wanted to design the soccer jerseys, and they wanted them to have a little bit of a street edge and do something different that was available to them in their market space. So that's why we met up, and I took my sketchbook with me, and flipping through the pages, trying to find a blank one to start working on this jersey. I happened to flip over the sneaker sketch that I had did. I sat there for a second or something like that, and it kept it moving, just trying to find a blank page. And then he was like, "Yo, what's that right there?" Like, he's like, "Go back a couple pages." And I was like, "What? This?" He's like, "Yeah, what is that?" I was like, "Oh, it's an idea I have for a sneaker." That gave him personality. He's like, and I kept flipping, looking for a blank page still.
Yeah,
and he's like, no, deeper than that. Well, explain that to me. And I told him, I was like, everybody is so accustomed to just calling shoes color, which that's the way the industry's built. So it's like, oh, I'll grab my white skinny shoes today to go with my white T-shirt or whatever that might be. But I was like, it'd be really cool if somebody could like kind of flip how people perceive their sneakers. So that's when I thought, coupled with my artistic style, the kind of graph-inspired style, I wanted to give them personalities based around flavors, snacks, anything cool, relatable, maybe even nostalgic that you grew up with, and kind of reformulate how you address the sneakers and stuff. So, when we launched, we did, I think, kiwi strawberry. It was like a red-green one, and I do the design on the sole, which we have like a transparent sole. When we launched, back in 2007, we worked to get that together the way that hold, you can see the art through it, but still hold up to the rigors of just walking on it. So, but yeah. And so each shoe on the bottom had the flavor that correlated with the design of the upper, and that gave it the personality. Cupcakes would be the black and white shoe. Lemon lime would be an orange and green shoe combination, and they all had flavors. So that's where that concept kind of went.
So when you started this, you thought, you saw the sketch and your business partner was like, let me check that out. What was the next step? Like, where did you go to get where do you even go from there? Do you I'm gonna do some more sketches, or you're like, I gotta call somebody? Do I do something in the States?
Yeah.
Like, what's next?
Yeah, for me, I pretty much just was like, all right, cool, I just let it ride out. But, JP got home, got to thinking about it, a day passed or something, and he called me up. He's like, man, I can't get this concept that you have come up with out of my mind. He's like, we should really explore taking this further than just an idea. So he's like, let me formulate a business plan, let me look at some VCs, some venture capitalists, and see what we can put together, and if we can find some traction to actually pursue this, So, and then he was able to put that together and, got a couple people on board early on. And the Magic Show, the Men's Apparel Guild in California, it's like a trade show for, back then had a lot of streetwear brands that would be visible. The Echoes, the Sean Johns, different things of that nature will all be out there. So, we said, let's make our debut at the Magic Show. After we got the sneakers tweaked to the way they were ready for bulk production. We went out there, had a great show, wrote over $1 million at our first public presentation. You know what I mean?
Wow.
We got back and it's like, we got more orders than we got products or infrastructure to even handle at this stage. You know what I'm saying? But it was a blessing.
Yeah.
But and it just kind of took off from there. But
and so you get to that point and you say, we've got so many orders, and everything was just hand to mouth. You just went to a show. I'm guessing you did like a table with the table skirt and some pop-ups on it, right? And so you're there, he's there.
Yeah.
And so you guys are just kind of telling the story behind it, and people are buying in, right?
Yeah, but we still wanted to make a splash out there. So, we got maybe 3X the standard booth size, and I had painted up this little city, like wooden carved out city scene of some skylines, and we ran some telephone cords and cables and hung some sneakers on it, and I just sprayed it up like it was vandalized. So it was a cool look out there. We just didn't get a space and put a table out. But yeah, the response was just cool. People were digging the energy, the atmosphere. We kind of tried to create this little culture. That's kind of all we knew how to do, and it worked. Everybody kind of took it in and could see what we were doing.
And so all the other places out there, so this is, I'm guessing, out on a wide open floor, and you guys kind of made your space inside that floor.
Yeah, exactly.
All the ones that you were, I wouldn't say competing against, but ultimately for sales and dollars, you are competing against somebody. What was their stuff like? Was it more simple, or were you guys, stand out just because of the booth that you kind of put together?
No, it's actually a really diverse show. That show, when it was in, its glory days at that point, it was real diverse. So you'd have big box guys there and just, screen print in the back garage T-shirt guys, you know what I'm saying? So it was a wide array. Trying to think of some of the brands that were big. Rockerwear was out there at the same time. I think it would maybe be like.
Now, what year are we talking about at this time?
We launched in 2007. So, we're talking about 7, 8, what I'm saying, 2007 and 8 out there. And I think we did the Magic Show. It used to run twice a year. I think it was February and August, something like that. And we was at twice a year for probably 3 years consecutively, maybe 2.5, 3 years.
And up to this point, you're doing what?
Just shoes.
Okay.
At that point, yeah.
No, I mean up until you go to launch this shoe brand, what is Tex day-to-day deal?
I was transitioning from a full-time to a part-time vandal. Definitely, what I'm saying?
I feel you on that.
Along with that, some odd and end jobs that just put a little scratch in the pocket. But yeah. That was my primary objective, was to be the king of the city.
I just kind of wanted to set that out there, is because like a lot of people think like, man, I've got to go to school to get my marketing degree, and I've got to go get, these people to back me, and I can't do anything because I don't know where this goes or where that comes from. Nobody knows anything about infrastructure, how to run a business. And so for you specifically, I mean, I know your story, but like, what is your, schooling background?
No formal schooling really outside of, high school, and I dropped out because I was bored senior year. So, everything is just, a lot of especially my intros to the marketplace were definitely centered on a streetwear perspective, what I'm saying? So, just kind of being heavily integrated into that culture, it seemed real natural to me to create product that I thought spoke to the demographic that I grew up around. You know what I mean? So as working through that company, YUMS, and where we were able to take that and just branching out from there, learning, manufacturing on a wider scale than even the tennis shoe market or sneaker market, that let me have the ability to create things outside of the culture that I was accustomed to, doing it from a lot of different walks of life. So that growth that came from knowing something, doing something that I know well, to being able to speak to another consumer in a language articulated through whatever product is designed in a way that resonates with them, that's a really cool accomplishment, to be able to speak so many different languages of culture.
Yeah. So. And then all right, I'm going to step back into your story a minute ago. So you said we got back and we had more stuff than we could handle, right? How do you handle that? Like, what are the steps? Like, did you guys, divide and conquer? Was this like, hey, I need to get more designs going? Or is this, I need to put pause on this for a minute and I need to just jump straightly into the ops side of this?
Well, for me personally, I was fortunate enough to have, J.P. McDay, who already, grew up in business, in a sense, young entrepreneur at that point. So when we got back and we realized that, we didn't have enough product on hands to fulfill the orders we just wrote, he was proactive in getting on the horn with the factory and say, what's the quickest turn time we can get XF on some of these products? So he was already, starting to put out some of those fires. As far as an instantaneous demand for more, that's when it hit me like, okay, like I just designed what I considered was my first collection, 6 kicks or something like that. And it's like, okay, if we are moving at the rate we just showed that we could do at this one show, we need to 4X that like instantaneously. So like, let's get back in that sketchbook of yours tomorrow and figure out some more flavors so we can keep this going. The last thing you want to experience when you're a fledgling company and there is some sort of demand that's hitting a dry spell that you could have figured out a way to not have when you don't have product to get to the market that, is gravitating towards you.
Yeah. So let's say you what does $1 million in orders really mean? Like, as far as like shoes goes, but as far as like clients go too, is that 10 storefronts? Is that, 5 brick and mortars? Like where are we at? What are we talking?
It wasn't big box at that point, and if I'm remembering this correctly, I think it was more the mom and pops, the boutique shops in the hood, you know what I'm saying? But that's where we wanted to be seated anyway. You know what I mean? So it took a while before we had some of the majors looking our way, but that's all because we had tilled the ground to the point where it could harvest that kind of result.
So start out in the mom and pop side. You guys are just like fulfilling like orders of 5 and 10 and 20s, to each place.
I think our standard back then was a 24 pack to open. What I mean? So you'd at least be bringing in 24 pairs of kicks as an intro order.
Okay, and how are you handling inventory with stuff like that? Are you, hey, I've signed you up for inventory and you're responsible for this, you got to buy this stuff to get, or is there kind of shared responsibility with this?
We had stock on hands in our possession anyway, so we were writing out of our warehouses. So we just, fulfill it and send it to them, and they.
Is this on consignment, or is this like they're paying for
So
this?
we had some terms. We were definitely doing terms on some guys, but it wasn't straight consignment. We did some wholesale and, put some terms on some of the tail end or stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And so as you go to start going into that, then like what's next? Like, are you just continually selling through these? Like people are just reordering stuff and it's just catching on word of mouth? Or did you guys say, you know what, we got to expand. We really got to start to push this out. We need to get in X fields so people can see what it is that we're doing. Or is there a channel or somebody, we need to go to this next show? Like what was the next step?
For us, it was pretty simple. It was like we did the first show and we knew that we had 5-6 months before it's time to do the second show, which we signed up in the beginning that we were willing, I think, to commit to 2 shows, and to fulfill that obligation essentially. So as soon as we got back, we just started grinding, getting right back to it, thinking of some ideas, thinking of how we can enhance our look, keep going with that. So we felt like we were setting our roots down, because I think that's very important. If you have an imagery that you want people to connect to, it's got to feel authentic. It's got to feel grounded and rooted in that. So you really kind of got to till that soil, So we used that time to kind of get back to that, figure out, how we're going to present more visuals for some print ads or different things like that. But we realized that we had something that, sparked. We could catch a fire with this one. So, it was a different approach to that drive when you got back. You feel like you were doing it for something. You could feel something off in the horizon.
And so as that started to expand, right, did you guys jump in any marketing channels? Did you guys do any like TV advertisement, or did you do any radio, or did you do any other types of marketing that way?
Yeah, when we started, we did all of the above, all of the above on that. We were doing print advertisement in some outlets that we thought made sense. We were also had some TV slots that were ran on some different shows that, studies have said that's when our type of buyer would be potentially watching. And we also was tied in with radio, so local radio. We're doing a lot with 97.9 The Beat and K104 and stuff like that. Because the music and that culture was a big part of our thing too. So we worked with a lot of artists, guys in our backyard, Big Tuck from DSR, Tum Tum, a lot of the local guys, DeRoe, we grew up with them and we had a relationship with them. So, wherever they went, we essentially went too, because, we was the kicks they was rocking and stuff like that.
So when you go to launch a brand like that, it's that you seeding the market with stuff, like you finding people that you really feel kind of fit your culture and you seed them with that as gifts? Or like how does that happen where you start pushing that stuff out?
Yeah, like I said, definitely staying in your backyard could be a way you do it. So for us, we, at that time period, myself, I was listening to a lot of the guys from Dallas, you know what I mean? So, I knew where they were because there was a neighborhood. It was T-Town Music, G-Lo, George Lopez from DSR. He had a spot in Pleasant Grove in, the Bruton Bazaar. So I knew where I could go access these guys, and I'd pull up, and they were there. So it's like, yo, I got this. I'm from the hood, too. I'm from the same neighborhood y'all are, and I'm doing sneakers. And, saying I'm taking this seriously. I'm really doing something. And it was like, yo, they could see it instantly. And it was like it was a natural thing there. So once they started rocking with us and putting it on, you get their demographic, their eyes are already on it, and they was a great working relationship because they pushed it too. The one thing that I did realize once we launched sneakers is organic marketing visibility is tougher on the sneaker because it's the lower portion of the body. Most people in the photos when they're at an event, when you get the shots that's going to represent that event, it's going to be cropped to a format where it's usually upper body. You're not getting a lot of full body shots. So
Yeah.
that's what kind of led to, and the fact that I used to love New Era fitted caps growing up. That was like the hat of choice. So when we got the sneakers off and running, we submitted to have New Era work with us on getting our headwear correct.
Okay.
And they were in that department, like the streetwear brands. They said they were back ordered on accepting any new brands for about 3 years.
That's a good problem to have.
Yeah. For them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it turned out that I think we were like 3 months waiting or something, and still had some conversations going, and they thought there was a natural connection with the shape of our logo and the way it looked on the hats, and they kind of fast-tracked us through. So, 6-7 months, we already had hats in hand, from New Era and stuff, so it was really cool.
That's cool. And so how much weight do you think that having that New Era label on the side, how much do you think carried that through? Because I know smaller brands too, like sometimes they're thinking about, man, what's the cheapest thing I can get just to slap my stuff on, right? But do you think that kind of piggybacked the wave, or how do you think that worked?
I definitely think at the time period we did it, it was a good play for us because I think there wasn't such a belief in the kind of what we call private label that much. It was, you had to have somebody validating it, especially when it was a new product to that culture in some form of fashion. So having that New Era flag on our hats at that stage in our growth meant a lot because it gave us that street cred that these dudes are working with these dudes and these are official type cats.
That's real.
We believe that, you know what I mean? So
yeah. This is somebody from where I'm from who's actually doing something. I want to support that. Yeah. And they're tied in with somebody really big. Yeah. We're official.
Yeah. It was there. The energy was there. You could feel it. You know what I'm saying? It's if you've ever had the benefit or the chance to build not only one successful brand but try to build a secondary one too, you can feel the differences between the two. And when you know something, it hits different. You know what I mean? So we felt really good about it. Like JP was like, I've been part of business for a while. I can tell that we have something here. You know
okay.
What I mean? So.
All right, so you're feeling like this wave, right? So the excitement level comes with it. You get some orders in, keeping that momentum going, right? Because over time, let's start with a couple of months before we get into like the long-term stuff. But like, let's say over a year's time, was it just a constant arrow going up for a year, or was it some rocky spots?
First year was pretty like it was darn near hockey stick out the gate.
Okay,
so it was pretty up the first year. I don't think we ran into any of the real foreseeable hiccups until I think Nike came into the picture.
Okay,
and that one it got a little bumpy at that point.
How did that? Tell me about that.
So we went to this is maybe our third Magic show. We were out there, and we had already kind of some of the new brands that were popping up that were doing footwear. They kind of knew us and stuff. So
so this is 3 years in, or is this just the third one you went to?
Year and a half in.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So, and they were like coming up to our booth once we was getting set up. Like, yo, did y'all get it? And I was like, get what? He's like, did you get the letter? I was like, what letter? I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, man, that letter from Nike. He's like, we got it. I think there was Kashi Kicks was a sneaker brand that we were dealing with then, or like we were friends in that space. And Greedy Genius, I think out of Houston, was a sneaker brand. And a lot of guys were getting hit with that cease and desist letter from Nike, but we hadn't got wind of that. we got home from that trade show, and the letter was at our office. You know what I mean? So yeah, they're like, you're infringing on some copyrights. We got essentially, stop manufacturing what you're doing, stop making what you're making, and find your exit out of the sneaker industry. Was basically what the letter said. So that felt pretty heavy, but yeah, we got cooking real quick and tried to get a lawyer and figure out what our next step would be.
Mm-hmm. No pun intended on the steps.
Yeah.
But so you guys decided to fight this, obviously.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Top. Yeah, we're gonna fight. We're fighters. That's all we know. So
Right.
definitely. Yeah.
So you guys just took it head to head and you ended up winning your battle. Was there any concessions in that whole deal, or?
Yeah, it was a whole process, and we're working on something that kind of in the works that is show that whole process, because a lot of little nuances in there that were interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, long story short, we went into litigation. Filed a lawyer that was taking it on the case. Nike's big bad gorilla in the room, so they try to drag it out.
Mm-hmm.
See if they can deplete your resources. What I'm saying, type vibe. But yeah, we fought through, and then we essentially got picked up in the Supreme Court based on the premise of our case being, big company, big corporation attacks small guys, small business, and then the turning point in ours is we found a little thing in their process of copyrighting their shoes that they, it was a gray area in there. So, we turned and started to attack that hole in the armor that we saw was there, and that's when they dropped suit. So that's how the Supreme Court cases kind of picked up on the premise of when that small business, which is being essentially attacked by that larger business, can find a way that there's a hole in the armor and they, go after them, they shouldn't be able to walk away from the fight that they initiated.
Right.
So it was based on that premise is how we ended up in the Supreme Court, which turned out favorable for us too.
So you guys flipped the script on them, and then it was like, now you owe me.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of the companies that we grew up in that space at that stage that we were dealing with. We're like, yo, y'all are fighting them? Like, yeah.
Because we all ran.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that's cool, man. And so a lot of those resources that you guys had built up over that first couple of hockey stick years, right? That all went into fighting these guys and pushing them back. Now, the people you guys were selling to, did that dry up for a little bit?
Man, it's God's timing is very interesting. So, obviously the sneakers is working out good for us. We get into it with Nike. By this stage, when this comes into our growth, we're opening up some of those bigger box stores. So we're in like the Foot Lockers, Champs, Foot Actions, or whatever the case might be. But we was in those national chains. So once the Nike thing actually, started to rise to the surface and people were getting more aware of it, we essentially gained this kind of retail leprosy. You know what I mean? Yeah. So all the guys was like, yo, we can't really rock with y'all because, Big Boy over here is covering 90% of the store's operating fees. So we can't upset them boys. So yeah, thankful, favor that we was able to get the New Era thing at the fast track the way it was, because the hats essentially started taking off, as a standalone product when we were just using it as a complementary piece to get some upper body exposure in the pictures. That's really why we started doing hats. It's like, yo, we got to get our logo on the head.
Yeah.
Pause. You know what I'm saying? But, you know what I'm saying? So it worked at the fact that when the shoes did start to slow up, we was able to transition into the headwear pretty seamlessly.
Okay.
And that caught for us. But yeah, not to say that it was smooth sailing. It was some patchy spots, but we did have something that we could fall back on. So it wasn't like, yo, we got to shut down shop.
And so you get past that first couple of years, right? And so the other stuff is kind of carrying, right? And you said, you kind of got shunned by some of the stores because, understandably, like that's the bell cow and that's carrying it, right? I get that. And so did you ever get traction back in those stores, or it just never has? You just realized the mom and pops is kind of where you need to live?
No, but it came in a different form. I think, where we were getting the bigger box sneaker stores as we transitioned into the hats for us, and that started gaining traction, we started getting the big box headwear stores. So we were still in the malls, still in the same footprint of how many openings we had, if not more, but through a different source, a different stream. Because Lids ended up picking us up, and they were like the number one in headwear distribution, to a consumer market in the U.S. So.
Yeah. And so let's talk about brands longevity, right? So you saw a crest for, how long was this big wave that you guys rode for?
In sneakers?
In the brand in general?
Well, it's probably 4 or 5 years on the high where we had, went international with our the retail side of it, the distribution side of it. We caught flame in Mexico with the headwear like crazy. You know what I'm saying? It was so crazy. I remember seeing pictures of like Mexico cartel members wearing the YUMS hat and like shooting videos and stuff. I was like, this is very interesting. And my product, they love it so much. You know what I'm saying? But and so we just got to the point that about that time, we had also learned so much from manufacturing our own products and designing, and how you can how that correlates with the factory, the logistic aspect on how you get your product back over here. That we decided, we know we can offer to other people and help them, with some things that they might be needing. So we went from our own brand to doing services for other entities on design and manufacturing and exporting and importing and everything like that. So, with time that the YUMS thing had slowed for us, we were already pretty knee deep in doing a lot of design and manufacturing at that point. So, full circle now to when just last year, maybe a year before, we relaunched YUMS. It's cool that it can go full circle. Because there's a lot of things that. Obviously, there's trends in the marketplace, so we're witnessing everything go to like a rock star look in the streetwear where everybody was wearing skinnier jeans and the baggy fit wasn't in. You know what I'm saying? Now coming back full circle, all of that style is coming back into play. Therefore, the style of sneaker, is back on that style. So it makes sense to kind of relaunch the brand at this moment.
So was there a time that you thought maybe it's done?
How so? You mean?
Like maybe my brand just kind of rode away for a little bit, and so everything comes to an end at some point, and the very few brands are evergreen.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, and so if you get a brand that's evergreen, man, you're ahead of everybody else. Because most things come and fall in 2 years, 5 years, whatever the cycle is, right? Yeah. But for you to make it this long, with your brand, I mean, kudos to you, because that's pretty impressive. Sure. So was there ever a point where you kind of doubted the fact of like, because I'm thinking about all the other people out there who've struggled with their brand or getting it up for a while and like really putting the hustle on and see a little bit of traction, and then all of a sudden it starts to back up, and it's like they throw the towel in because it backs up, because that can kind of take your spirit at some point. Or am I just, hey, I need to pour this in because this is me, this is who I am, this is my brand, and I'm not giving up?
Yeah, that's a great question or mindset to be thinking on, because I think at that point, just for me, it also is going to be deeper to, if this is your brand, what is your connection to this brand? Like, is this was burning in your heart and you just know that you had to get this out? Was this something that you was doing just for a buck hustle, trying to make some money capitalize on the culture real quick or something? Because I think if it's really tied into you, your personality, you're interwoven into what you're making, then I think it hits differently. And that gives you that drive to hang in there when it dries up a little bit. Because a lot of times, any company or any brand that you see that resonates with you, or that it's relevant enough that where you're constantly seeing them, it was just a test of time that they hung in there long enough, their way through their down spots, they hit traction, and it was able to snowball, turning them into what you see. So a lot of time, perseverance through those tough times is what's going to make you that household name if you was just able to stick it out.
And that's kind of hard too, because you see a lot of people out there that are really trying to tell you what they think is good advice, but like, man, you can't ride this way forever, or blah blah blah, right? And it's just, it feels unfair because somebody's doing what's in their heart, right? And they're really pushing, and you always want to feed someone's passion, right? You want to make sure that you're trying to help them get their brand up and running. But sometimes you feel like you understand the person that's out there trying to go like, man, let's move on somewhere else. You're wasting your
I
time.
think you also got to be real receptive to like the little pulls of directional changes. You know what I mean? Like what your vision is for your brand before the market can give you any feedback could be a lot differently towards the end of that progression. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you have to be pliable enough to know that things are changing, the climate, the terrain in your market space, and adapt to that. I think that's a big component to success is being adaptable. You know what I mean? I don't know if that's exactly a word, but I think it is.
I'll go with it.
Sound good.
I'll go with
So
it.
we're gonna rock with it.
You hear my accent. I'm not tearing you up.
But I think that's big. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
It's not being so rigid in you feeling so confident in what you're presenting that you won't change at all.
Yeah.
To being aware that your market is going to give you the nods on what they like about you, and they could also put you on to how they see it better fitting their life. And if you can design something in the format that is true to you, but caters to what people want or need, then that's when you really are making some beautiful music in your space.
Okay. So let's talk about, we went through that first time. You guys went through the launch. You went to the magic show. You kind of got a couple years in and really kind of blew up. And then it kind of tailed off towards the end, right? And then you went with a relaunch the second time a couple years ago. What was different for the relaunch that you didn't hit on the first time around? Because you're like, you know what? This second time around, I'm doing this because I know this works and this works and this works without having to, what were the keys to that?
Yeah, a lot of growth. Just in the product in general, the market research, the data that you pick up. There's things that you learn like through trial and error. We try this particular color, this particular silhouette, this particular style. It didn't quite work. You know what I'm saying? But we learned at the same time that if we do this way, people gravitate.
It's a win every time.
More, you know what I mean? So I think just having that insight from the first go round applied to the second go round with the growth that we've done. Obviously, as an artist, I think, my artist self is always evolving and changing and, has to get better in my opinion, just because it's something that I'm putting out there. So I think the design aspect that come a long way, our awareness in the, from the factory standpoint, getting things here at a lower cost point, being more proficient in how we executed the business side of it, that part made it a whole different experience. The confidence going into the second launch as opposed to just the excitement of doing something for the first time. And the first run was way different, and that felt really cool.
That's cool. So seeing it for the second time around, were there any marketing channels that you jumped into? This is kind of about, are there any keys that somebody's kind of leaving on the table? Because a lot of the stuff you've kind of told us to this point, grassroots, new radio channels, TV at the beginning. Second time around, now we're in the, digital age, right? Yeah. What's happening now that you really shifted your scope when it came to marketing? Like, where did you start shifting? Are you still doing radio? Did you, really focus on TikTok or Instagram, or like, what were you guys doing?
Yeah, as with the first launch, it was definitely more locally driven. So you had to be with the local news, the local shows, local radio. This go around, local is global. You know what I mean? Right. Now, so your reach is so far beyond what it was, and social media wasn't even really a thing. I remember towards the tail end of the first heavy run of YUMS, we were still on like Facebook or something like that. So, the fact that, the IG community, TikTok community now, it can spread so fast. Your eyeballs is just increased so substantially.
So you're just like putting out tons of content? Are you guys boosting that? Are you pulling in influencers? Like how's it happening?
Once again, all of the above. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just trying to find ways to stay relevant like everybody else is doing right now in this new space. Things are working. It's been running for a while this way, but it's so easy. Something new can be on the horizon these days. You know what I mean? So you got to keep your head on the swivel to what that next platform is going to be that your your whole consumer base is going to now gravitate toward. You know what I mean? Like back when Facebook was the only big channel, they couldn't foresee, Instagram, Twitter, and all of that. So it's always going to be a change in landscape, and just keeping your eyes open on how it's moving and how that affects your market. If that makes sense.
So are you guys taking dollars and are you organically doing everything, or are you taking stuff and boosting it?
I think you were shooting shots on all of it, but a lot of it is organic because I think at the end of the day, people just love sneakers, So it's real easy for somebody to reach out to us or us to reach out to them and be like, yo, we like your style. We would, we're interested in.
They understand it.
In doing something together. They understand the style. So it's been cool both ways. It's been a lot of organic, and then we've shot our shots and, pushed some ads like every brand should be experimenting in at the same time. A lot of that doesn't always work. I think, I don't know, it's feel, felt, found. But it's you can't be scared to try any of it,
Yeah, so going into that part of it, you start thinking about the journey that you've had from super fast rise to, the trials that you had through the middle to like thinking about, as this thing starts to, taper off a little bit, the pickup again, the new channels that you go into. It's a journey. The whole time, I mean, you've gotten other things that are happening in the works too, right? So can you talk about some of the other brands and stuff that you just kind of kicked off? And like, I know that you've gotten into clothing and apparel, separately, so, throw some of that out there.
Yeah. It's been, had the blessing to work with a lot of brands, create for a lot of brands. We were tied in pretty heavily with the Dallas Mavericks, doing product in their pro shop, turned into the fact that working with their team, on a lot of different projects, did the City Edition jersey and all of that campaign that supported that program was really cool. We worked with the sports teams that are locally, the Rangers, Texas Rangers, FC Dallas, did things with all of those organizations, really cool. Really loved them. Designing product for different entities, Gas Monkey Garage with Richard Rollins. We did a lot of stuff with him. Really cool to work with that outside of the box of what I'm typically accustomed to. And I think we did a lot of great things together with them. But then that experiences just get you to the point where, you always are just looking for the next opportunity. So I'm constantly thinking of something else I can create, from F&F, Fruits and Flowers, my new clothing brand, to, we're doing stuff with Gulfstream, the plane company, the private jet company and stuff like that. So, it's really cool to be in those conversations at those tables, sharing our side of creativity.
And the cool thing, too, is about you taking all this knowledge and passing it back to the next generation, right? So I know in your own household, you started a brand with your daughter.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We want to talk about Hellabella for a second.
Yeah, she, Jasmine, she goes by simply Jasmine. But her freshman year, I was just like, why don't you, create something, do something. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, what are kids your age, what do they like? What is something that you can provide to them that they would accept? And she's like, well, we love hoodies. I was like, well, let's do a hoodie brand. And she's like, cool, let's do it. And she, we worked together on the logo and everything. And then, we ordered, I think she started with 2 hoodies, 2 colorways. And we did the minimum, which was, probably 150 hoodies per colorway. So 300 hoodies coming in. And when those arrived, the look on her face at that point was like, this is a lot of hoodies.
This is real.
I'm going to sell these hoodies.
Yeah.
And I put them in her room. So these are lining her wall next to her bed,
nice.
Stacked to the ceiling.
Yeah.
And it was like, now here comes the grind. This is where you go to your school, you wear your product, you talk about your product, you get it out there, and put it in people's face. And, she had her moments where her confidence started to build. It was getting a little bit of traction. People kind of liked it. They were, what she was putting out was resonating with them, the logo style and the colorways and stuff. So she caught on social media somehow. Somebody bought a hoodie, and that person that bought a hoodie, posted it at the right time in the right location, and it just kind of snowballed. And that part from me knowing how it was seeding brands to watching hers organically hit that growth like that at such a young age.
Mm-hmm.
She's a senior now. She'll be graduating this year, but I mean, her social presence, and they've turned it into a business. Her and my wife, L.A. Linda Ann,
Mm-hmm.
they put it together, and her and Jasmine run this whole thing. You know what I mean? They knocking on like $1 million in sales on a brand that's just as a high school student. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy to watch.
Yeah, that's really cool because I've been a part. I mean, Tex and I've been friends for quite some time, and we'll get to that story here in a little bit. But watching a lot of that stuff happen, makes me want to kind of do the same thing for my children.
Oh, for
right?
sure.
Like thinking about like how
Everything.
you pass that on, and that nugget of like, I love the fact that you said I lined her wall with this.
Yeah.
There's boxes in here that you got to look at every day, and your responsibility is if you want your space cleaned up, you got to get moving.
Yeah.
This is on you,
Yeah.
right? There's no hiding this in the garage, and this goes to get rain on it or whatever. Like this is on you. I want you to know every day you got to push.
Yeah, I see it. You're looking at it every day.
Yeah, and so and I remember you telling me once that it hits pretty hard in New York too, right?
Yeah, she definitely caught traction on New York. She has never been to New York. You know what I mean? But like, yeah. So I don't know. That part is crazy. The world is so big, but it can be so small at times. You know what I mean? So.
And she's exclusively doing all her stuff through social media.
Yeah. Yep. No retailers. It's all direct to consumer via her Instagram and TikTok.
$1 million in sales. Yeah. TikTok, Instagram. That's it.
Yeah.
That's
crazy.
Wild. That's wild. Yeah. Social media is all. Yeah. That's crazy.
Hadn't had her 18th birthday yet. You know what I mean?
Oh, that blows my mind. Super jealous. That's awesome, man. That's really, really super happy for you. Yeah. Got to get my kids busy though. Got to get working. Boys, y'all get ready. So going through all that, watching all these brands grow and everything else, you and I personally know each other because we're both artists, right? We were introduced through a mutual friend at a party.
Yeah, shout out Brandon Reed.
Yeah, thank you, sir. The golden tones of Brandon Reed.
Yeah, y'all check him out. His music is amazing. No joke. Brandon Reed.
100%. And so he came. We both went to watch one of his shows on top of a skyscraper in downtown Dallas, right? And so after his show, he came over and I was talking to him. He's like, "B, I'm so glad you're here." He's like, "There's somebody I've been wanting to introduce you to for a long time." He says, "Don't move." And he runs across the room or the top of the building, grabs you on the other side. And Brandon's a big dude anyways, tall guy. And he's, dragging Tex behind him, coming all the way over. And, Tex walks up to me. He's the nicest guy in the world, big smile on him. And Brandon goes, "Tex, Brandon, Tex." And he goes, "See y'all later." And so we were like, so I guess we're supposed to talk,
Right, no doubt. He had the foresight to say, okay, I need to connect this. I think he did that in between a song set too.
Yeah.
Like he put the guitar down, hopped off stage, like boom, boom, boom. Okay, I gotta go finish the set.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, it was instant connection. We've been super tight ever since. So, and then I had the pleasure to putting you on to the mural side of it through the spray can and stuff, which was really cool.
Yeah, you said something to me, and I'll never forget. At that time, you were like, I said, "Man, I had not seen your artwork," and so we were just kind of passing the phones and stuff like that, and I was blown away at your skill set, and I was like, "Man, it looks like a computer did this." Like, I mean, you were so refined in the line work and stuff. I was just like, "Tell me how you do this," because my mind doesn't. I painted for galleries and stuff like that, and paintings and smaller subjects. I asked him, I was like, it blows my mind because I control the depth of what I'm looking at the entire time, from my face to my,
hands.
It's constant, right? You paint on a wall, you go to the wall, and you can get out of scale being on the wall, and then you got to get down off a ladder, walk across the street, dodge the cars, check everything out, then walk up, catch a reference point, and then go all the way back up and on the other side, right? Yeah. So I was blown away. I kept saying this. I said, "Tex, like, this blows my mind how you do this." And you flipped it back on me, and you're like, "Well, dude, your portraits, like, I just don't even think that way. I can't even see how someone can get organically painting like that, Yep. And so we were both just kind of, talking about each other's style or whatever, which is, Ours is completely the opposite, right? But the cool thing was, he, you know, as I said, man, I said, I'm really impressed by the murals and stuff. And he said, have you ever done it before? And I said, no, man, I've never done any can work. It's all acrylic and whatnot. So, he says, well, I'm doing one tomorrow, you know? And, so he's like, come on out. And I said, I may do that. So he was out there, and I just kind of walked up in the back, and, he saw me over his shoulder and was like, you know, hey, creeper, get out from over there and come check this out. Right. And, so I walk over there and I start talking to him. I didn't want to bother him at the time. He was in his mode, you know, but, he started showing me some, you know, what he was painting and everything else. And then he throws me a can, and I said, what is this? And he was like, you keep your hand close to the wall. It's a tight line. You pull it out, it's a fade. You turn it this way, it's a cut. You turn it this way, it's a cut. And then he goes, that's yours. And I was like, whoa, just a second. Hang on, chill out. Like, I'm not going to tear your stuff up. And I remember you saying, I've been doing this for a long time. I can fix it if I need to.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You know,
Yeah.
So jump in there. That part's yours. And, you know, we've done murals together for a long time now, and I've done murals all over the place for myself now as well, you know, and it's really crazy because I always credit you for, you know, causing me to cross that threshold, to making me step over that line, to push me a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, hey man, come back, or you got to think about it or whatever. It was like you threw a can in my hand, and you went at it, you know. And then it wasn't like you sat there and watched me either. You went on and did your own thing, you know. And I was like, man, I sure hope I'm not jacking this up, but I'm gonna trust the guy. So, and I was there for an hour or so, and you know, you kind of walked me through a few things, but it was cool. But I've made sure the same way. You know, I remember painting a mural that I was doing on one time, and this kid rides up on his bicycle, you know, and I look back, and he's just watching from across the way, trying to hide like I did, right?
Yeah, for sure, to see it from afar.
Yeah, yeah. And so I'd been painting for murals for a while at this point, and so I just hollered at him. I said, hey, come on over. Let's talk to you for a second. So I took the scissor lift down. I said, so what's up? And he's like, man, I saw on social media you were going to be here. I've been following you for a long time. I just wanted to stop and check it out.
Oh, that's dope.
And he goes, one of these days I want to be a muralist. And I pulled a Tex. And I literally threw this can to this kid, and I said, you do this to get as close to the wall, you pull this to fade out, you do this to cut. And then I looked at him and I said, that letter's yours right there. And he said, you're kidding. I said, no, man. He goes,
That's cool.
He said, well, I got to be at Walmart to work here in an hour. So I have 45 minutes because I have to ride my bike the rest of the way to go to work. He goes, so I'm going to do this. And so the kid's painting, and, you know, he's, you know, going all over whatever. And so he gets a little heavy in a couple spots, you know, and paints, you know, you get close and sometimes it's dripping everywhere, right? Well, this kid has it running down the edge of the can. And for the rest of my life, I'll remember this. He takes that can, and he has some new shoes on, right? Black suede shoes. And he takes the can and rubs it across his shoe, like to clean the tip off. Yeah, to get the build up. I say, yo. I said, dude, I got rags over here. Like, you don't need to do this to your shoes. And this kid turned to me and he goes, yeah, you don't understand. This is a memory for me.
Yeah.
And I want to have this memory that lives with me a little bit longer than just up here for a while.
That's dope. Yeah.
Same thing that's happened for you with me. Mine has been, you know, more tangible of now I just duplicate it and whatever. But that kid's story like that, I hope you're listening out there. You know, I tell that story every once in a while, and it really touches me. But this is it's pretty impactful. You know, just the ability to put someone onto something. Yeah. You know, cool. Which kind of like what you did with Jasmine as well. You know, so throughout all of this stuff, as we start going through this, tell me how artwork has stayed consistent, murals specifically, and what the journey parallels with the brands and how that's changed or not.
For me, it's, you know, obviously they're running simultaneously, you know what I mean? In the sense they both have their own lifespans, but I cannot not paint, you know what I mean? So like, I gotta always find a ways to, you know, get up, do a project or something like that. So I think the difference between those two buckets of my creativity is the painting and the murals has always been like a therapeutic form of artistic expression for me. And the products and the designing of, you know, the items is like that's where my heart is as far as I have to get that out. You know what I mean? Like one is where getting it out, helps me, and then one is what I just have to get out for existence. You know what I mean? So I think they serve two different purposes, but they blend together so seamlessly. You know what I mean? Because if it wasn't for my love for graffiti and that form of art, there wouldn't have been the tennis shoes, there wouldn't be the clothing and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So
has it ever dipped? Like, I know like a brand can rise and fall, right? Has your passion for creating and murals, like, you ever taken a couple years where you just didn't do it that much? Or have you ever had like, no, man, I'm out there every weekend, no matter what it is, rain or shine, like, this is me.
Yeah, it's ebbs and flows to that too, because I definitely, there's moments where it's like, I got to be on it just because if nothing else, I got something that I'm trying to grow as far as a new technique, and I need that repetition, that doing it over and over to kind of perfect that. And then it might be something that I have in my mind, and once I feel confident that I've got that down, that's in my catalog, it might be a lull period because I don't have anything else that I'm trying to accomplish or drive through towards, you know what I mean? So, and during that time period, that's when I might be on products more. I might, have more clients that we're creating stuff for, so I have to put more attention into this, you know what I mean? So I think when it gets that way heavy, then that's when I make a decision that, okay, next weekend I'm going to call up B, I'm going to call you up, I'm going to call up some of the homies, and I got to go paint something, you know what I mean?
So do you find the stuff that you're painting finds its way into the stuff that you're doing every day?
Yes, essentially, yeah, for sure. In some form of fashion, it all, blends. Yeah.
I know that as I'm creating, because we have a marketing company as well, and a designer from the get. The style and stuff that I've created, like over the time, like a lot of the art that I create after hours, some of those tips or techniques or things that I find out from all the hours I put in bleeds back into what I'm doing on the other side. And somebody's like, oh, how'd you do that? And I'm like, well, to be quite honest, like I was figuring this thing out in
Over
XYZ,
here.
and I was like, man, I should do something like that here. Exactly the opposite, the same way. Like I've done Photoshop forever. That's been my deal. Photoshop and Illustrator, like those have been my things.
Yeah.
But it's all built in layers, right? And some of the things that you say to me of like, how did you do that? I stack everything. You process. I mean, you could start left and go to right and be done.
Yeah.
I could never. I have to stop from back and come forward.
Yeah, you got to build up.
I got to build up, and that's just the way my mind thinks, And so thinking of Photoshop layers and how those things kind of come into it, do you feel the same way with what you're doing as far as like creating, brands or logos? Like that logo is so clean and iconic. It is very similar to the same type that you do on walls, right?
Yeah.
Fat lines, heavy, big gesture, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, my experiences with, Illustrator and working on the vector side of it, that naturally applied to my graffiti approach, you know what I mean? It's always been, I gravitated towards like the boldness, the brightness, the big, kind of powerful pieces. But I think that's even changed as I've gotten more experience in the computer side of, graphics and stuff. That's now, I can see that visible in my graffiti style.
Speaking of the logo up there, do you talk about what that means? It's got a little attitude up there, a guy winking and tongue out.
Yeah. When I sketched it out, back in 2006, I wanted something that, in my opinion, was easily recognizable and relatable. So, and then my personality, I'm kind of, happy-go-lucky essentially type vibe. So I was like, I think the smiley face is a cool almost juxtaposition too, because it was a hood brand, you know what I'm saying? So I think like, kind of mixing that playfulness, energy, with something that, is not so happy at times, due to the economic situation or whatever, the hood isn't always, a bright, cheery place. So I think that was something where I was able to marry up, that energy into that culture, and it was really cool. So the attitude of the face, the eyebrow lifted, is kind of keeping your head on a swivel.
I know
That's the
some you
hood
don't know.
aspect of it too. You know what I'm saying? I got my eyes open. You know what I'm saying? But and then the tongue, the kind of playfulness of like sticking your face, tongue out on somebody is kind of stunting on them at the same way. So like all of that is the conversation that logo has. With me is all of those elements.
Now, another thing too, like, some of the gallery stuff that I used to do a long time ago, well, whatever, the gallery stuff you put in, you sit and you talk around people. Sometimes I would sit and hide and not let them know that I was the artist and hear their story behind it, right? And they'd say, oh, the artist meant this, or the artist meant that. And I would be like, oh, that's cool. And I wouldn't even divulge it was me, right? I'd have people even coming up telling stories about me that didn't know me. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
What I'm getting at is the translation of what I painted to what they received didn't always come across the way that I wanted it to, right? Do people get that same from that brand? Have you heard somebody say something like, dude, I get this because it hits me because of this?
Yeah, and I think we didn't really, in the beginning, put out what the brand was. It was just, how the brand moves type vibe. You know what I mean? So I've heard a lot of people, articulate to me what they get from the brand, what they thought it was, how it relates to them, and there's been like points that's like, oh yeah, that's totally in line with how I foresee it, and it's like, oh wow, that's what it represents you. That's something I would have never thought it was relating in that way.
Yeah,
but, so it's cool that a lot of people have told me what they feel YUMS is, and then when I have the chance, I tell people what to me YUMS is too.
So going forward a little bit more, artists that you've want to work with, or is there a collab out there you're like, I got to get one with this, or something you're missing? They're not say missing, but like striving for.
Not off the top of the head, nothing that it's just like that for sure. But there's a lot of cool things that we're doing right now that isn't out yet. That's going to be pretty cool for everybody to see in a little bit. But I'm always just down for somebody who speaks the same language. A lot of the things I've done have just been really organic. We just kind of meet in the crossroads, kind of like even me and you.
Yeah.
Somebody that knows me or knows them says, hey, y'all should talk. What I mean? And these two entities should create something together. So it's been real organic, and I love it that way too, because it's, I think almost when you got your eyes set on something, you're so tunnel vision and got like, blinders on, having that focus on it, that you don't pick up on the organic changes and things that are happening around it. Are cool to process and take in too.
Are there any styles out there that you're inspired by? Like,
countless. And for me, like I tell people this all the time, but it's like inspiration can be the smallest things. It doesn't be like, oh, my inspiration for YUMS is brand A sneakers. You know what I mean? It's like a new flavor for me. I'm a fat kid at heart.
Yeah.
So like, YUMS is like me just really, thinking of snacks or thinking of foods or thinking of treats that I love, and how I can translate that into this sneaker, you know what I mean? So I could go travel somewhere or eat something, experience something, and be like, yo, that's the next flavor right there, you know what I mean? I'm going to transition that meal I just had with these people that I enjoy being around into a flavor that I can share with the world.
Yeah, and you talk about inspiration too. I know that, that winky face you got up top right there. Like, I've done some illustrations myself that I've had. I think I called you on it one day. Like, I drew, it didn't have a circle or anything, but I had like this smiley face where the eyes were X'd out, and I think the tongue was going the opposite way or something like that. But I looked over and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I can't believe this. Like, I've put this on like 10 things, and I never even, until like, I think I was wearing something of yours at one point, and I was like, and so I called and apologized.
That's the subconscious.
It is. Yeah. I had another painting that I did, and some guy called me and said, hey man, some script you did over the top, this looks like my boys. And I was like, he's like, you shouldn't be ripping them off. And I was like, I had to go research it real quick.
Yeah.
And I was like, one of the M's that I did inside of that did look like a dead pool.
Wow.
And I was like, you know, I mean, I told him, I was like, man, to be quite honest, like, had no idea. Obviously, subconsciously, I saw this somewhere. And then, you know, you just dupe it. You think you got an idea. It's your own. Next thing you know, it's like something you saw somewhere else. And you're like, ugh. Yeah. You know? So I told him.
Eyeballs are constantly eating information.
Yeah,
you know,
just absorbing
where they get stored at some point in time. And, you know, you reflect back on it in some form or fashion that you can't even relate where that came from. But, yeah, you're constantly intaking data and saving it up, you know, to pull on later.
Yeah, and so I hit him back, and I was like, you know, thanks for hitting me up. I was like, I'll never do that again. I was like, but I just didn't know. And so even that answer back to him, he was like, wow, way cooler than I thought it was going to be. I thought you were going to be like, that's mine or that's whatever. But I was like, it was real. Like, I didn't catch it, you know. And so
even the thought process of that, his homie, seeing it in there and be like, yo, that's
my boy. What are you doing? Don't be messing with my boy.
Because your art is layered. So he had to like dig through layers and be like, that I recognize it. Like, okay, props to you for digging that deep. That's what's up.
100%. And what you just said right there is huge from brands. People get behind it because of the person. I don't think people get behind it necessarily because of, I mean, you could build something that's cool as a color or whatever, but I think that's once the trend really kind of takes off.
Yeah.
I think the trend's never really going to take off until they find the person behind it and believe in that guy or that girl that's out there pushing that thing and hear their story. Yeah. You know, so how much of your story have you told this entire time? Like, I know you said earlier as a quick snippet, but if you can elaborate a little bit, you said, hey, I'm from the same place you're at. You know, we grew up same place. This is the way I feel, the way I believe. I just want to show you guys some of the stuff that we're putting together. Mm-hmm. Like, how much of that influence do you think is really what you need to push your brand out?
It's definitely something, you know, I'm aware of because I want people to know me if they know my product, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. So constantly trying to just, you know, find ways that don't seem like try hardish either. I think a lot of people say, oh, you know, you got to speak for your brand constantly. It's like, I think there's moments when you speak for your brand, and there's moments that your brand has to have a language strong enough to communicate for itself. You know what I mean? So I think there's a balance in both of them, but I do like to say something when it's time to say something, and you know, and then be quiet when it's time to be quiet. Yeah. Listen, you know what I mean? Too. So
I like that. You know, I mean, first off, that's just your personality, anyways. Yeah. But it's genuine. You know, and the thing that you get out of that is like, you get tired. Everybody gets tired of these salesman routine. Like, oh man, they're so and so again. Man, they're gonna be pushing me on their CD or they're gonna be pushing me on their whatever, right? And it's like, I got it. You're trying to do your own thing, but presenting when it's time to present, right? Read the room, you know, because people want to support people naturally. They don't want to be browbeat by anybody, but they want to support people naturally, you know? And so, that's cool. So I know that you specifically are into shoes. You're, which both of us are really into shoes. We have
I was going to say,
we got a group called Music and Kicks, which is, you want to tell a little something about Music and Kicks?
Oh yeah, that's the homies. That's the family. You know, my new brothers from different mothers that, you know, met through you. And we've all grown to, but we got a little chat group, text group or something where we're saying, you know, what you rocking today? I'm rocking these, you know what I'm saying? You know, we have First Flight, you know, with Lou and Todd, you know what I'm saying? And then Connor on there too. You know, we'll do unboxings to ourselves. Like, yo, I've been sitting on these ones. Y'all ain't seen these yet, but today they're going out. So when we open up a new pair, that's First Flight. So we'll send a little airplane emoji like, oh, fresh out the box today. But yeah, that's fun too. You know?
And then our boy who always shows out, always wins the day. We got one cat, don't want sneakers whatsoever, but throws down boots every single day. And we're out here trying to flex on some new drop, and he's got some boots in a puddle of mud or standing in the grass.
Always show, you know, he's out there getting it though. He got boots on the ground. Literally. That's
the definition.
You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's dope. He always finds a dope setting to display him in. Too. His creativity on his boot flicks is thorough.
Yeah, it is. It's on. So what shoes out there that you want right now?
That's gonna be tough.
Because I know I've seen some stuff that you've come across, like the big furry Chewbacca looking boots.
Oh yeah,
that you was looking for. I mean, I even was in the game trying to search for you.
Still couldn't find those. The Rick Owens Montclair collab. Yeah, the big rocks boot. I can't find them my size. But I've been trying to be good. Like, you know what I'm saying? I've been telling Linda, like, I ain't bought no shoes in a while. Actually, I did.
I don't believe that for a stitch.
I got those the furry white
the bear claws, the polar bears with the metal toes coming out.
So I'm waiting for those to ship from Bravis. So.
Yeah, those are pretty crazy. So what do you think about Ye's new shoes, those pods?
I don't know, because I do know that old Kanye's vision was so far out there that even if you wasn't there yet, you'd get there shortly. You know what I mean? So it's a bit wild for me, but I always say don't never say never. You know what I mean? So you know, his vantage point might be a little higher than my vantage point on that particular style currently.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
What about them big red rubber boots?
Oh yeah, the mischief boots, huh? What's crazy is those are cool. Like that's like the Astro Boy style boots. And Mischief does crazy things. I love. I actually want to. I'm probably going to get those. Like when you break your foot, you know, you get the medical boot. You get the medical boot slides, and those are hard. You know what I mean? I'm probably gonna get those paws on that too. But yeah, so I gotta be careful because you know Yusef. The homie Yusef is out there. That boy's paws police. Like,
paws police.
You said something on this that was questionable.
Yeah. Shout out to that gang too. That's our poker group. But yeah. So as we go through this, so you've been keeping the art thing kind of relevant. One last thing before we kind of get out of here. You took a little bit of a dive in the hip hop area for a while. Rapping. You want to talk about some of that?
Oh man, it's just expression. I just love creating. So like I love writing music, like, you know, putting verses together. And my brother, you know, Chosen, who used to go by Yella at that point, was always making beats. So he was, you know, at the house, you know, me, him, and my mom's, he was always in the room making beats. So he'd be like, literally, hey, come here. Like, you know what I'm saying? Spit something on this so I can see how this beat sounds with lyrics on it. You know what I mean? So, yeah. And then even back to the homie Abyss, who goes by Tony Slow-Mo. We had a group, Constructicons, back in the Gap because we was all Transformer fans. So, you know, that was a lot of the homies, you know, that was all rapping together back in the day. So that was always just something we just enjoyed doing. Yeah. So,
but you made it where you actually put out a little bit of an album, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I looked on like it wasn't Spotify, but it was something that had some text on it. Was it Spotify you on now?
I don't know. I ain't put out no music in a minute. And
I know. I looked it up though.
A lot of the things I did with you know people. You know, so they put projects out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna dig that up, and that's gonna go in the music and kicks group.
Yeah, it's bars, 100% bars, guaranteed.
Well, Tex, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us and
for sure.
And going through your story and really like I hope this is really inspirational for the people out there that feel like they gotta go a certain channel or whatever, but just to hear somebody who's kind of gone back and forth between their journey of highs and lows and didn't graduate high school and now got multiple brands out there, and not to mention like all the murals, man. You're one of the top muralists out there in the country right now. So you're gonna stay quiet on that. But but seriously, like the guy kills it all the time. So you know, you got anything else you want to throw to anybody? Check me out at
you know, IG is Tex Moton, TexMoton is my personal handle. The YUMS Shoes account, already designed code. You can see some of the other things we did on from the parent company perspective. Fruits and Flowers .market is the website for the new brand, and yeah,
Hellabella.
Oh man, sorry, Jasmine. But yeah, at Hellabella Graham, you got to go check her out and support her, and you know, let her know what she's doing over there is dope.
That's awesome. Thanks, brother. Appreciate you being here.
For sure.
Always.
You already know.